Are you ready to shatter ceilings, to redefine what's possible in your life and business? Then welcome to the Beyond Woman podcast, where we dive deep into the heart of empowerment, the art of crafting a lifestyle business that truly serves you, and the tools to unlock your most authentic, powerful self. I'm your host, Jacqueline Walker Johnson, and here we celebrate the women who are rewriting the rules, the visionaries carving their own paths, and the experts who are sharing their hard-won wisdom to guide us all. Join us for intimate conversations with women who are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Women who have the expertise and the sheer grit to empower you to step into your limitless potential. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and transformed. This is the Beyond Woman podcast. Let's begin. We want to welcome you to a new episode of the Beyond Woman conversation, actually the first episode for 2025. And we're so happy because we have the CEO of Bellevue Hospital in Jamaica with us, and we're talking about a very important topic. I mean, it's not even mental health day or week or month, but it's just a topic that we feel that needs to be an ongoing one, you know, where we all just chime in and have these relevant conversations and educate ourselves and, you know, just to talk about this whole matter of mental health. So I want to introduce to you my guest today. She is Suzette Buchanan, and she is a visionary leader with a distinguished career spanning corporate, governmental, and media sectors. With over 14 years of experience in local representation, she has consistently driven transformative initiatives and fostered meaningful change. As the CEO of Bellevue Hospital, Jamaica's leading psychiatric institution, Suzette is deeply committed to enhancing mental health care. Her leadership ensures that Bellevue remains a crucial pillar of support for the community. She has also served as CEO of Caymanas Limited and the Universal Service Fund, and she has contributed her expertise to such boards as JPS, JCDC, and Aeronautical Telecommunications of Jamaica. Currently, she is a commissioner for the Local Government Services Commission. Suzette has a decade in radio, and she's a graduate degree in international business with law. Suzette is also known for building high-performing teams and achieving impactful results. Above all, she is a proud mother of two, to Toniann and Tahj, and remains dedicated to service and community. So, Suzette, I can call you Suzette, right?
Sure.
Welcome to our platform. We are just so happy that, you know, you took time out of your busy schedule, because I see all the happenings on social media. You are on the ground. And let me tell you, listeners, when Suzette came in the room, I knew she was on the ground. So,
oh my God.
Welcome again.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so very much. Really appreciate you. Appreciate it and commend you on creating this kind of platform to provide information and key persons in the know with a focus on women as well. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you too. All right. So mental health is a topic. Like I said, I'm not saying that we don't talk enough about it, but we have to talk all the time about it. It's important, right? Especially in our Caribbean community. I think a lot of us suffer from silence and fear of being judged. And so we're having this conversation today to kind of contribute to breaking those barriers and shifting the mindset and normalizing therapy and self-care. So we're going to kick it off, the conversation by beginning with something that I think is like the driving force behind how we interact with this whole topic, and it is understanding the taboo. In a lot of our Caribbean households, mental health is brushed off as bad mind or spiritual warfare. You know, we have been raised to believe that only crazy people need therapy. And I believe that mental health is just like, it's like physical health. it needs care. Would you agree, Suzette? So according
Absolutely.
to a study by the WHO, depression is one of the leading causes of disability worldwide. Yet in our Caribbean region, mental health issues still remain underutilized. Like, we're not giving enough credence to this whole matter and the people who are involved in that arena. So my question to you, Suzette, my first question is, why do you think mental health is still such a taboo topic in the Caribbean?
It is, Jacqueline, you said it right at the beginning of the conversation, the stigma that is attached to the illness and the many myths that are out there. So the stigma, once you are in a community, once you're in a family and you suffer any mental health condition, they use the terminology, you're discarded. And some believe it's a life sentence. So that's a madman, it's a mad woman. If you're not acting your normal self, boy, you're mad. And so the use of those terminologies to describe the illness, then there is a stigma. So nobody wants to be associated with anyone that they so-called mad. So one of the things that we need to begin to do in the Caribbean is to begin to change the language. The language is very, very important. So the stigma, and also many Caribbean people believe in spirit, obia. And even at the Bellevue Hospital, that is one of the problems we'll have. If you pull any member of the family and say, listen, talk to them about their child, they'll tell you straight up that without reservation, they'll say, Miss Buchanan, the hospital can't go this far and no more. I think she needs spiritual intervention. So as soon as she leaves the hospital, there's a little man in the village we're going to take her to. So you're absolutely correct. The stigma is one of the reasons why persons are afraid to get help. Persons are afraid to be associated with those who have mental health conditions.
Right. And, as I listened to you, something came to my mind that we, as individuals who are not so au fait with the matter, with the whole topic, we tend to, as I said, it's just crazy people. But what are some of the things that manifest in regular people that would suggest that there is a mental health issue? The question is coming from the viewpoint that we need to understand that all of us at some point have mental issue. I feel like if we are suffering from depression or if we are tired, what are some of the things that we should have be on the lookout for as it relates to saying that we do have mental health
Good.
issue
So as you're aware, a mental health condition has many ways of manifesting and it comes in many forms. And you spoke earlier about depressive disorder being high on the list. Also right there is anxiety disorder, right? And so there are so many of them. But one of the things that you can look out for is just how this person, as it relates, let me speak specifically to depressive, which is one of the most common. And you'll have depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, then it graduates into, then the person becomes bipolar, and then bipolar, borderline schizophrenia. And so they're all related and falling on different ends of the spectrum, different parts of the spectrum. But some of it, let us look at depressive disorder. Once you are, and I'll encourage your listeners to pay close attention to your family members, your neighbor, and your friend. Caribbean community have to move to a place where they now begin to look out for their neighbors more and look out for your friends. You're in church, it is okay to ask someone beside you if they're not okay. If you see certain signs, we'll talk about these signs. The person might be somebody that used to spruce up and dress up like you, Jacqueline, right? If that person is not dressing up anymore, so all of a sudden they come and they don't look as good as they used to look, then that's a sign that something might be happening. Sleeping a lot, so the sleep pattern has changed, you have to look out for that. That's one of the things. Eating, if there's some changes in the appetite, if you know your husband or your child to be a healthy eater and they're no longer eating the way they used to eat, you need to ask some questions. Staying, locking away. Do not assume that this person, it's so I'm staying sometime-ish. In the world of mental health, there's nothing called sometime-ish. There is usually an underlying issue, whether there's a personality disorder, whether there's bipolar disorder. So if the person is in isolation, if the person does not have the desire, so your husband or your wife no longer have the desire to have sex, do not readily assume that this person is cheating. The culprit might just be a mental health condition. So it is speaking excessively. If that person is not usually a talker and all of a sudden this person is telling you everything, that is something for you to look out for. If this person usually talk and this person becomes withdrawn, then that is also something that you need to look out for. This person is always participating in activities, whether they are going to the gym or they're going to play tennis down the road, and all of a sudden they don't want to participate in these activities anymore. Then this is where we know something is wrong. Something is definitely going wrong. Sometimes for many, and there's a lot that you might not be able to see these signs. And so it is important for us as family, as professionals, as managers, and I encourage HR in every organization that I've addressed to have a wellness day. Whether they're going to model Australia, there's a wellness day within the corporate world in Australia, where, on a Wednesday, the psychiatrist comes in or the psychologist. The thing is, we need to do more mental health screening. We are required to do a screening, once you get to a certain age, you have to look out for breast cancer. And so you have to do that examination. You have to check the brain. The men are told they have to check the prostate. But with bad mental health, you have no health. So there is a need for us to have those annual screening. Sit down, speak to your therapist. We cannot avoid stress, Jacqueline, but our therapist will help us to manage it. And stress comes in many forms, whether you lose a loved one, whether through death, whether your boyfriend or your husband of 20 years suddenly find somebody younger and just move on, or probably you've lost a job. You need to sit and talk to your therapist so you can know how to navigate your way through this difficult period. But what we have done over the years is we have layer one trauma onto the other trauma. If you are doing your screening, sitting down, then you'll be taking care of one trauma. You learn to manage this one. And all of these things pile up and pack onto each other. And the next thing you hear, the person ends up in the hospital. You hear that the depressive disorder is borderlining bipolar disorder. And then you hear it's borderlining schizophrenia. And then it becomes full-blown schizophrenia. So I've always said, Jacqueline, and I'll say to those who are listening, ensure that you focus on your mental health in whatever you are doing. It has to be priority on the list. The same thing that applies to breast cancer, the same thing that applies to any other illness. Early detection can save lives.
Listen, I had to laugh at that last one, because let me tell you, I've never heard that before. And I'm pretty sure most of the listeners have never heard that one before, the early detection as it relates to mental health. And as you describe all of what you just said, can I say that all of us probably are mental health candidates? Because the world that we're living in today, it is just such a stressful place. I mean, it's hard to escape it. And you made a point that I want to ask. Are you suggesting that a person who is, have a normal life and, everything is okay with them can go through stress or go through challenging situations, don't take care of it, and it can lead into bipolar disorder? Is that what you're saying? Because most of us feel like bipolar is hereditary,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Early detection, just about as I've said, it starts for many they'll tell you when you look at their history, when you have discussions with them, certainly being in a hospital environment. And might I add, my daughter suffers from bipolar disorder. She was diagnosed at 17 years old. She's now 31 years old. So I've had my journey. I've been a part of the community before coming to Bellevue Hospital. And it started with depressive disorder, the cutting of the wrist, being in school, in high school, and she was on the heavier side, being ridiculed for being overweight. And I had to be taking her through counseling, so that she learned to love herself and accept herself. That eventually took a toll on her. And the trigger for her, and I'm sharing my story because I want your listeners to understand that this is real. Mm-hmm. My daughter was just like any normal child.
Wow.
Normal child, an ardent high school student, A student. She's still an A student. But it happened, depressive disorder. So the circumstances, situation at the time, she was overweight. They were unkind to her. She didn't fit in. At one point, they pushed her down the stairs. And all of this, she kept bottled up inside of her. So I did not know until late. I was asking questions until I noticed that she was cutting her wrist. And it was time for me to have this conversation because I was giving her all the things to pretty up herself. But I wasn't doing any mental health screening. And so now she is bipolar disorder. About 2 years ago, she was borderlining schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
And so it starts there. And we have to look out for these signs because had I known earlier, I would have taken the necessary steps at the time. If I had known the potential of this illness at the time, back when she was 17 years old. And then the main trigger, and sometimes, Jacqueline, we're susceptible. We're predisposed because somebody in the family might have had it. Whether mommy or uncle, when you check the family tree, so we're predisposed. Mm-hmm. This was not the case with Toniann because when we checked our family tree, and I can mention her name because she's very open about her illness. Mm-hmm. And for me, this is cutting the stigma. We need to have more conversation and stop putting the person that is has a mental health condition in the back room as if it's a little dirty secret. Mm-hmm. We talk about that, and I'm encouraging your listeners to talk. Mm-hmm. Had I known that she had these issues, I would have taken the necessary step. But the main trigger was in 2013, and the trigger for those who are predisposed are what you call susceptible. An event can trigger you. Her father was killed tragically in 2000. It would have been when she was 17 years old, 17, 18, and she just went mute. And it is at that time she was diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
So, yes.
No,
go ahead.
No, well, I'm just thinking about, I'm happy that we have moved into like a family situation because within the Caribbean household, you'll hear things like, stop your crying, toughen up, these things. And I want you to speak to those parents because I know it's still prevalent. People might think that was in the past, but I know that today it still happens. They're not acknowledging what the children are going through. And you see that just this morning I was having a conversation with someone about the world and how it is and how afraid I am for my daughter who is 14. As you talk about the signs and what was happening with your daughter, I'm thinking about my daughter too. And I mean, they're not like us, Suzette. Mm-hmm. They're not tough like us, or some of us, I should say, or yes. I don't know. They don't have the ability to weather these kinds of things that are thrown at them. And so the parent contributes to it by telling the child, just disregarding the feelings of the child. And I wanted to speak to that parent or that caregiver and let them know what the impact. Well, you kind of talked about it with your daughter.
Yes.
But I don't know if you want to add anything else, but directly to the parent or the caregiver about the impact of these kinds of dismissive responses when probably a child is trying to get through their feelings? How, what's happening?
And that's excellent question. And I'm speaking certainly from being my own experience as a mother and also being here at the hospital, because I walk and I have conversation with my patients. And let me tell you, parents, begin to have conversations with your children. Make it comfortable, create platform, talk to your children, develop a friendship as much as you can. Begin to talk about mental health around the table. Begin to spend quality time with your children. Listen to your children. Do not disregard their feelings. And I'm also appealing to the men, because the suicide rate in men, it is 40% higher than that of women, because the men especially do not have any outlet. So here, the ratio at Bellevue, it is 1 to 5 when it comes down to women. 1 women, 5 men, if you understand where I'm going. So we have 1 acute female ward and we have 4 acute male ward. Begin to have conversation. If you're a child, earlier we mentioned the sign, look out for those signs. Ensure you look out for those signs. If the child indicate that they want to communicate with you, have a conversation. If they do not communicate with you,
draw them out.
Have a discussion with them, call them out. They probably don't want to talk to you because my daughter did not want to talk to me. So you look out for that. Right. But here's a good way, and I'll say this again. Incorporate the mental screening with all the other screening that you do before back to school. So you normalize it. Because if you call out that child, and say to that child, come man, I carry you to check up on your mental health. They might say, mommy, out of order, call me mad. So if you incorporate it in that way, and it becomes the norm within your household, then it is easier for that child to seek help. Most of the time when our children are going through something, when they are mentally compromised, as parents, we are the last to know. The classmate know, the schoolmate know, and everybody know. Teacher might know, and as parents, sometimes we do not know. So begin to have conversations. Incorporate mental health screening when they are going back to school. If they indicate that they want to speak, always ask your child if it is okay. Give them that reassurance that you are here for them. If it is that there's a family member, because sometimes us as parents or our sisters and brothers, we are triggers, A child will talk to the neighbor, talk to the auntie, but mommy trigger that child because mommy is the one that is trying to enforce certain things. So when it comes on, probably do your homework on time, do this, do that. So when it comes on to these little things, the child sees as a trigger. So sometimes the child don't want to talk to mommy, but the child has his favorite auntie that this child will go and this child will have conversations. I can tell you, at one of the main causes when it comes down to depressive disorder, and this is a conversation we need to have, a lot of our young women and even young men, they have been abused physically, sexually, they were molested. When you have conversation at this age, some of them were touched inappropriately, and this is a subject we don't want to talk about. But at the base of many of these mental health diagnoses, you'll hear, I was touched inappropriately, whether by a brother, an uncle, whether when I went on a summer holiday. And in the Caribbean, the victim is the one that is to run away and become ashamed, and not the perpetrators of these crimes. So we were taught that. And so we bottle these things up inside of us. And every day you relive this in your mind. Every single day you relive this. And I can speak from experience, and it's the first time I'm speaking about this openly. I remember growing up in rural St. Mary as a child. My mother was a teenage mother and had 2 of us. And when she embarrassed the family when she got pregnant at 70, she was tossed out of the family home. And she went to St. Mary, and she lived in St. Mary with her grandaunt. And I remember, so as children, we stayed there until we were 8 years old. We came and we lived in Portmore. But during those early years, with my mother staying in Kingston to try and make ends meet as a single mother and staying with my grandaunt, I had the responsibility of taking up a particular elderly man dinner in the evening that my grandmother cooked. And one day I was there and the man touched me inappropriately on my private part. And I am saying this to you, and I'm giving you as real as possible. There is not a day in my life until I started to do therapy when I was 40 years old that I did not remember that. I was not penetrated, but I was touched inappropriately. I know it was a bad touch. I couldn't speak about it because I didn't know if my grandmother would believe me. And every single time I see these incidents and I hear of them, it brings home what transpired. And believe me, until I started to get treatment, I never forget it. I am coming real with you, Jacqueline. This is the first time I'm speaking about this openly because I want people to understand the severity of this issue.
Yes, I mean, oh my goodness. I understand. I do. I've had my own experiences, but how do you, I want to talk about the mental screening. But before we get to the mental screen, because maybe persons don't really understand, when you say get mental screening along with the regular physical, we need to talk about that. What does that look like? But, I mean, how can we change this stigma where, as you said, the person, who this thing has happened to, can openly have this discussion with somebody and not feel fearful? Where's the foundation of that first and foremost? And why is it that it is still continuing today? And how can we change that narrative?
We need to have more conversation, and I must commend you on providing this platform and just being the kind of host you are. So I'm comfortable to share something that I've never shared.
And I should have said thank you for being vulnerable. Yes. Thank you for being vulnerable.
I love that word, vulnerability. We're afraid to be vulnerable. It begins just like this, Jacqueline. Have these conversations and be open. And that's why I spoke about talking at home. These are conversations we need to begin. I have these conversations at home when I have my staff meeting, general staff meeting, and I have over 600 staff members. When I have my management meeting, I share my own story. I talk about these things. So I provide that platform. So we normalize these things so people can begin to talk. It is okay for you not to be okay. It is okay to understand that you are the victim and it is the perpetrator that needs to run where you don't need to hide. You need to talk about it. So it begins with conversations. We are not having conversation. In 2025, the subject is still taboo. The more, and I can tell you from experience, the more I talk about these things, it's the more people talk about it. I'm in the line at the Jamaica Public Service and I begin a conversation. Are you okay? How are you feeling? How's your day going so far? How is work? And someone will just break down and just hug me and start crying. And say, I've been going through it. I just didn't have anybody to talk to. Begin to have more conversation. That's the only way we're going to normalize it. But it cannot be swept under the carpet. I've had a friend for over 30 years and had no idea the friend has a mentally ill brother. This is somebody I know for 30 years. We do almost everything together. And it is when I began to talk about my journey with my own daughter, when I began to share and sought assistance from my very close friend. My friend said, I have to fess up and tell you something. She said, my brother is mentally ill. And one day we were driving to Linstead and I passed him on the roadside and I didn't even look. So it is out of me having conversation and going blow by blow and giving him details about Toniann that he has opened up. Here at Bellevue Hospital, it is when I started, we have had incidents here, and one incident where a member of staff, he put a noose around his neck and he took his life here some years ago. But glad to say that is changing.
A member of staff.
A member of staff here. So happy to say
not a patient.
Not a patient. And not a patient. And I'll tell you, that is slowly changing because I'm now having open conversation and I'm sharing my own experiences. So they say, okay, it is okay for me now to talk. And I am providing the support. So we have contracted external services to help because sometimes you don't want to talk at home, what is happening at home. So there's an importance, there's a relevance in getting somebody on the outside. So they're now talking, but all of this is coming now. Persons are now coming to the CEO office because I have an open door policy, because I appreciate the environment that I am in, and I'm about love and making people feel comfortable. And so persons will come from time to time and say, Ms. Buchanan, I don't feel well today, or this is happening to my daughter, and then we can intervene. But only when we begin to have conversations and normalizing it within our environment, telling your daughter and your sons that, and your husband, that this is like having a migraine. You take medication and it is controlled. This is okay. We can talk about it like we talk about diabetes. I've always said hypertension because those are common. I use it all the time. Once you begin to have those conversations, you have to be intentional about having the conversation. That's the only way you are going to be able to know what is happening and to navigate your way through these issues.
Well, we're going to take up that mandate and we're going to run with it because, you know, there are a lot of people out there who know that they need the help. But as we said earlier on, just the fear and the judgment and the stigma, you know.
Talk to your pastor.
What was that?
Talk to your pastor. Talk to a counselor.
I was going to say that maybe you can't speak to your mother or your father or those within close proximity, but find somebody that you can trust. And I'm just saying that if you are listening and you're afraid to reach out, just know, as Suzette just said, that she has an open door policy with all her staff members. Know that you are not alone. Getting help does not mean that you're weak or whatever. It just means that you recognize that you need the help. And that is also a beginning point for a lot of us. We have to know that we need the help and go and take control and go and get the help. So I want to talk about the mental screening. What is that really? Is that something, right, what the doctor, what is it? When you talk about mental screening?
All right. So when you want to screen your prostate, you go to a urologist, right? I don't know if I remember that correct, but it's something like that. Your listeners will correct me, I'm sure. But yes, so yes, they always do that very well. But you go to your psychiatrist. You go to your psychiatrist. They have the tools to use. They do your psychometric analysis also, and they have the tools that they use. So you go and you sit and you have a conversation. They have their training in that field and they have the specific tools. And there and then, when you go to your psychiatrist and you're properly assessed, it might be 1 sitting, 2 sittings, 3 sitting. Then he will make the necessary recommendation. That assessment, the psychiatrist might discover that you're suffering from depression. Because some of us call mood swings depression, oh Lord, or personality disorder, we have a personality disorder. These things can be controlled. So once you go and you have that sit down and have the conversation and they utilize their tool to arrive at a finding or arrive at a diagnosis. Sometimes there's no diagnosis, but it is an outlet for you. Sometimes you might leave there and you do not have an issue. But he can also say with a potential what this might happen. You might say to him, say, boy, doc, the boss trying to move me up into the CEO position, you know, but I'm not ready for it, you know, and I am having reservation because I just think he might, in himself, he might look and say, listen, I see some anxiety kicking in. You know what I mean? So even with the conversation that you have with the psychiatrist, they can pick up the problem that exists and potential problem and help you to manage these things so that it does not get worse. So it involves, the screening involves sitting down, having the conversations. They will use their tools designed to get the information that they need. There's a psychometric evaluation test that tells you, provide you with the information and can guide you as to situations that you cannot manage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But
let's talk about the accessibility though for the regular person. So maybe we're gonna move into like resources. What is available out there for someone in rural Jamaica that might not have a lot of money to go to an established psychiatrist? Let's talk about that.
So we are certainly not where we want to be. And there's been a lot of work. The Bellevue Hospital is said to be the only psychiatric hospital in Jamaica and the leading one in the English-speaking Caribbean. What it is that we offer here in Jamaica, and I can only speak to Jamaica, is that you have your community mental health clinic and you have psychiatrists that have specific days that they go to these clinics. So in every parish, you have a community mental health. So even when you come to Bellevue and you have done your time at the hospital and you are discharged, the maintenance treatment is done with your community mental health. So your parish community center, community health center, that is mandated to take care of these issues. So you have your psychiatrist that comes in at specific time, and that's where you see your psychiatrist. Here at Bellevue, this is an additional, we have been setting up some outpatient clinics in recent times. So we have been seeing more persons than we would in several years ago. We're a referral hospital, but there is a need. So we have to sit down as a board and sit down as management to see how we can tailor the services that we offer to meet the demands. So no person will walk off the street and come into Bellevue and seek support, and we provide them with that support. In addition to that, we are now offering psychotherapy session online within the last 3 months. So these are just some of the interventions. So if you're in the corporate area and you're going through a crisis, give us a call at Bellevue Hospital and let us schedule for you to speak to one of our very competent psychologists. We have wonderful psychologists here, and we have the only neuropsychiatrist in the island of Jamaica. That's our SMO.
I love it. I am absolutely happy that I asked that question, because of all my many years, we won't say how many, but it's a lot. I didn't know that those resources were available, especially so close to home within each parish. So I'm very happy, that we got a chance to talk about that and to know that help is there.
Yes. But Jacqueline, I'll hasten to add that all general hospitals are equipped with a psychiatric ward as well. So that's important for us to know. You don't have to go to Bellevue for a mental health emergency, because our emergency hours are 8:30 to 10 o'clock. So once your emergency fall out of those hours, you go to one of the psychiatric wards on any of the general hospitals.
Good information. And I'm going to make sure that,
so that's important.
If there's nothing else that our listeners get, that they get this bit of information, because this is important to know that it's there out there, the resources out there. And so we don't have to be going through things alone. And earlier when you were talking, the thought came to me, sometimes half of the time we just need to talk. Sometimes we have conversations with our best friends and our girlfriends, and it is such a relief when after, we have gotten everything out of our system. So sometimes it's just, us needing to vent, to get things out of our system and to feel better. So we want to talk a little bit, we're wrapping up now, but we want to talk a little bit about this whole matter of self-care, which is so important to all of us women. And I was so surprised by that statistic that you mentioned earlier, though, because based on the talk that is out there, that we are the ones who are overburdened all the time. I was just a little bit surprised by that one in five statistic that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
But let's talk a little bit about self-care and what are some of the practical everyday self-care habits that we can start today to take care of our mental health. Make some suggestions.
Happy for that question. It's key.
Without feeling guilty, I might add.
It's exercise, walk, nature, connect with the ground sometimes. Sometimes during your break, find a safe space, find a green space, and just take off the shoes and connect with the ground. Your breathing, meditation, right? Your meditation, exercise, key. It's very, very important. Have family events. Do the things that you like. When you are making your budget, do the things that you like. There are some of us that like for me, I like retail therapy. And this is retail therapy is something. I know people laugh about it and when I say it, but no matter what I'm going through, and if I go online, even on Amazon, and buy a pin, those feel good endorphins kick in, right? So I'm saying just do the things that you like, but exercise is key in maintaining good mental health. Eating right is key. Your food is your medicine. And that's why here at the hospital, we don't have a kitchen. We have a fully equipped dietary that provides specific meal based on your nutritional needs.
Wow.
We feed you. Food is a part of the medicine. So we just don't have a little cook shop because we understand, even as a person, even a part of my daughter's care in Australia was her food. They changed what she ate. So she had to eat a particular food because food formed a part of her care. So these are just some of the things. One of the main ones that you can start to do tomorrow, get up, begin your exercise routine. Every morning I do 5K every morning. I walk every single morning, barring none. And that is my contribution to my mental health. I put myself aside sometimes and I sit and I meditate. I journal. Journaling is an outlet also. That is something that we can also do and ensure that whatever you like, not what your neighbor like, what you like, you budget for it and you ensure that you do it. Another thing that is also important that gives you these good feel-good hormones is when you're kind to somebody else. It might sound strange, but it is true. Try, make a difference in somebody's life and realize how you feel good and smiling to yourself for the whole day. Lord God, when I remember how the lady smiled when I give her the computer, you're just basking in the moment and you're producing those feel-good hormones and it is good for your brain. Whatever you like, do it. That is something that's an advice that I have for you. As long as it is healthy for yourself and it is healthy for others. Be intentional about good mental health. So if whatever you like costs money, make sure you plan for it and budget for it so that it doesn't bring on another stress when the light cut off. You say, Lord Jesus, the light cut off because we go buy our shoes and Gucci. So if you like Gucci shoes, sit and plan for your Gucci buying, right? And ensure you plan for it because you don't want one problem to create another one. So these are just, but top my list, if I had to choose the best one, it is exercising and of course, coming to Bellevue for your mental health screening.
I love it. Excellent tips and tips that we can just incorporate in our daily lives. We talk about it endlessly. You take the time out for yourself. And I keep harping on the fact that the world is such a challenging place to exist in today. You know, we see the crime and the violence and, you know, we worry and we harbor that kind of fear. And so it is so important for us to start taking care of ourselves, taking 5 minutes out of your day and just take care of your mental space. And Suzette, I really want to thank you for saying yes to having this conversation, and hopefully we'll have more conversations in the future, and I will still be following your journey on in this whole mental health space. I really love the energy that you bring to it and the care that you bring to it, because it is so evident when I see you on social media, the care that you bring to your space and whatever it is that you take on. And so I appreciate that so much, coming from one woman to another woman. Right? And for our listeners, just a little bit of recap, right? Suzette suggested that we exercise. So important and so easy, right? Immerse yourself in nature. I love that one because I'm a nature girl. Do your mental health screening. It is available. Can't say you didn't hear it from this platform. It is available for all of us. Be kind. Understand that your mental health is just important as your physical health. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness. We have to dismantle that stigma and understand, as always with everything in life, just take the small steps, the baby steps, but take the steps. Take care, take control of your situation. Understand that. Don't discount what you're going through. Don't discount what your children are going through. Pay attention and take the necessary steps to ensure that it does not lead into something that is bigger and something that could have been prevented. So if you like this discussion, please, please, please share it with another woman, share it with your community, and let us all just educate ourselves and just get into the know more about, this whole matter of mental health. Not something that we're to take lightly, but something that we're to take seriously. Thank you so much again, Suzette, for this beautiful conversation that I'm pretty sure has enlightened our listeners. And I just want to wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless your listeners.
And that brings us to the end of another powerful episode of the Beyond Woman podcast. I hope you're leaving feeling inspired and ready to take action on your dreams. Remember, you are capable of so much more than you think. Keep pushing those boundaries, keep learning, and keep believing in your limitless potential. We want to stay connected with you, so be sure to follow us on social media at the Beyond Woman magazine for daily inspiration, behind-the-scenes content, and to join our growing community of empowered women. Don't forget to visit our website at www.thebeyondwomanmag.com and www.thebeyondwoman.com, where you'll find even more resources and articles and also opportunities to connect. Sign up for our newsletter and be the first to know about upcoming events and exclusive content. To all my incredible Caribbean sisters out there, let's lift each other up. Share this episode with the women in your life who need to hear this message so we can continue to build this powerful network together. Enjoy this episode? Then think about leaving us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support helps us to reach more women. Thank you for being a part of the Beyond Woman movement. Keep shining, keep growing, and keep living your most extraordinary life.